So today, uh, we've got a lot to go over. Actually, we're going to be talking about marketing strategy. I'm trying to get in my seat here. Peter hanging over. We're going to be talking about marketing strategies for retail landlords. For that, I've got Najla. Najla owns KM Marketing out of Arizona. She has done work for many large retailers around the country. Najla, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Joseph, for having me. We're really excited to share some various insights on how we can strategically market and drive value for specific assets.
Yes, yes. I think, you know, you've worked with some of the largest retailers around the country, correct?
Some of the largest REITs and landlords across
Landlords,
the country, not
landlords. Yeah, yeah,
necessarily on the retail side, but on the landlord side, yes.
yeah. So if if I'm a retail landlord, I see that a lot of them they just kind of lease the place out and let the tenant go and do their thing. I think you're going to be finding that, and I'm sure you've seen that it brings a lot of value that if you as a landlord actually help your retailer promote their business and you promote your property. And that's really seems to be taking a big step forward. Are you seeing that as well?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a huge step forward. I think it's being acknowledged, and there's no better time right now than to have the focus on marketing. But absolutely, it goes along with the same saying: you get out what you put in. If you put the effort into it, and you put a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of attention and a little bit of capital towards it, you're going to see immense amount of value. And so today, I am going to share with you 10 operating strategies that we use in how to market a real estate asset, a physical space and place. We don't sell widgets. We don't have an actual product that we're selling. We're selling a space and we're selling a place and we're selling an emotion and we're selling people that want to come to a space so that they can help to facilitate and transact and help garner, additional sales for our retail partners. So at the end of the day, traffic drives sales, sales drive rent, rent drives value, and we're here to provide more value for our partners. And in this case, it's the landlord. So today we're going to go through 10 different strategies that we use on a regular basis. And then we'll just talk through each of them and see how we can, increase them and add value as we go.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that because I really think, when I say it's a big step forward, our retail clients that we represent weren't doing anything before, and we're finding that they are seeing the light, right? They're saying like, okay, if I help my tenant, I get my property out there, it's going to help everybody involved. So I'm really anxious to do this because I think a lot of landlords are kind of, they're spinning plates right now. I'm not sure what works, what doesn't work, how do I go forward? And so I think these tips that you're going to give here are very key to a lot of people's success.
Yeah.
So
All right.
let's start. What's number one?
So number one, here
What's
we
number
go.
one?
Drive sales and traffic. I think that's first and foremost the most important thing. And we do that by creating reasons for people to go and reasons for people to stay. And we do that in order to generate extra revenue through driving traffic and impacting sales. And you do that through creating immersive experiences, by working in tandem with various merchants, by leveraging your digital platforms and your various applications, by partnering with local community leaders and organizations, by creating events and programs, and really having a shopping or dining or entertainment experience that your guests has a connection to and that impacts the bottom line, whether it's for a reason, a weekend, or a season.
Can you kind of give me an example of one of your, I'm going to steal all your juice here, one of your top events that you've done that was very productive?
Sure. So we do a series of events. We look at each location individually. So it's not a one size fits all program. What works in Hawaii does not work in New York, does not work in,
Right.
Aspen. So you have to look at each demographic space and place individually and really work with what you have around you to try to drive traffic and sales there. So local programming is paramount. Cultural programming is really important. I also do a lot of work with groups around the country that have different events that might target a specific use or a specific category. example right now, Pacific Retail Capital Partners across the country is hosting a program called Cosmicon, and that was essentially developed to help with cosmetics and beauty brand and to develop a pipeline of deal flow, but it also creates an experience and an event to show that the customer base is there. And so we target those customers through a variety of different channels that actually I'll be talking about in some of the next couple steps. So why don't we go to number two, which is community engagement.
Yeah, let's jump in.
So community engagement was one of the pieces that helped drive traffic and sales, but essentially you want to partner and network with local organizations, whether it's chambers or conventions or visitors bureaus or nonprofit groups or youth organizations, local trustees in the area, media groups, influencers. All of those people can help with engagement. I'm a firm believer that the money that you have to spend on marketing your shopping center or your asset should really be spent within your local demographic, because those are the people that are shopping and spending time in your place and space, with the exception of tourism centers. There are some exceptions there. But essentially, you want to help support the goal of being a community center and being the hub of the community and being the third place for people. So being engaged and in touch and in tune with all of the different partners who can help propel you forward is really important. And as an example for that, I'm going to talk through, in the pandemic, one thing that was fascinating but also really interesting to me was that, didn't matter if you had an A center, a B center, a C center, didn't matter if you had $100,000 marketing budget or $1 million marketing budget. The spigot got shut off. No one had anything, and all you had was a little bit of elbow grease, an Instagram account, and your network. So the people that had robust networks and were connected with their community maintained a threshold as a community hub and stayed relevant for the customers during this time. So I think that that's really critically important.
Now, when you said influencer marketing, do you target, I don't know, not mini influencers, but mid-level influencers, or do you go for the big?
No, we target micro influencers. Typically, we don't really have budgets to work with massive influencers. I mean, the guys you're probably thinking of or talking about are, spending $500 to $1 million posts, but we work with people specifically who are micro influencers. They probably have about 10,000, 20,000 followers. They might be an up and comer in the market, or they might have some type of celebrity status, but they're influencers within the medium of the people that we're wanting to attract or wanting to bring in. And you can work with them on a pay for play type program. You can pay them to do stuff, or you can work with them in a partnership type of an experience where they come and do different reviews. And, there are various ways to collaborate and to compensate them. But we do that as well as part of that program.
And do you focus on influencers that live in the area?
Ideally, yeah, because you want those influencers to target their friends and family that also live in the area that can influence them to come and shop or dine or be entertained in that space.
It seems like you're really taking it from, it sounds like a retailer, but a retail landlord. I mean, it's huge for what you're trying to do for them.
Yeah, well, especially.
All right, number three, sorry.
Well, actually, number three plays into number two. Number three is supporting leasing efforts. So you want to be able to position the center as a top tier location for local or national or regional brands, depending on what kind of unique concepts you're trying to court or you're trying to get in. You want to make sure that you're partnering with leasing teams, that you're developing a holistic approach, that you have localized plans, that you can support localized leasing procurement initiatives. All of those things are really important because ultimately the leasing drives the program. And so you want to make sure that that team is successful. And then you want to promote the leasing efforts. So you can publish and promote things through local industry publications, social lifestyle campaigns, custom collateral, unique programming, creating, templates, programs. A good example would be the Festival Companies is actually one of our clients, and we do a lot of leasing support for them. So, creating newsletter templates and programs and pushing that out, developing a platform on Instagram and other digital, vehicles to be able to announce leases that are signed or new or innovative concepts that are coming to market. And then we also use those elements to DM people and actually create an open dialogue, get some communication, and actually set meetings. And that was actually something we talked about in our last communication that we had was how we help to support the leasing teams. But another way to incorporate the leasing is really, you've got your tenants on a watch list, right? You've got folks that might be expiring soon. Maybe some folks are close to a break point that you're close to getting on. If the marketing team that's working with you knows that ahead of time, they can do a lot to help get them to that break point. So they can help propel that brand forward to ultimately get you to that threshold where you're getting more rent for very little of an investment upfront. If you're pretty close. So that's number 3.
Let me ask you something. I got into a conversation with a retailer the other day. He's a firm believer in billboards, and I honestly, Najla, I about fell over. I'm like, who still does billboards?
Mhm.
What are your? I mean, it's a word that I haven't heard in a while in the marketing area. Is that something that's still effective?
Yeah, it's still effective. It's actually coined
Really?
out of home advertising. So it's anything essentially that's outside of your home could be considered a billboard. You're thinking, the large scale boards. Depends on what market you're in, what area you're in. If you're in Los Angeles or you're in a area where you're driving on a freeway in traffic consistently, billboards are very effective still. If you've got a grand opening initiative or you have something that is enticing people to get off at an exit or to some type of a call to action on a path of travel, they're very effective. They're great for short stints, short points of time. The big thing with billboards is you want less than 7 words on the billboard. And some people tend to put a paragraph on there, and that's not what they're intended for. So if you are going to ever put a billboard up, less than 7 words is the key.
Okay. All right. Number 4.
All right.
I
Number
should be
4.
writing notes down. This is such great info.
Number 4 is to support your tenants. They're your partners. So you want to provide tools and resources to offer recommendations for them in order to be successful. So creating partnerships, having them participate in different programming, over communicating is paramount. Nothing is worse than not having communication between the landlord and the tenant. You want to help try to create strategic solutions or offer support for your retailers in terms of resources that they can tap into. So going back to 2020 again, pandemic time, creating and having resources for them to tap into on like the small business grants or ways that they can help to fund their business more. We worked with lots of tenants to help extend their premise, right? So creating outdoor patio seating area locations for them when they couldn't operate inside, coming up with click and collect type programs. In some cases, we even created a e-commerce platform and a site for them to still transact and do business because they were solely brick and mortar and they didn't have a presence online. So I think it just depends on what their needs are, but being engaged with them, communicating with them, and figuring out what their hot buttons are and what their goals are is really, really important. So that goes back to just strictly communicating, getting to know who they are, and having a relationship.
Yeah. I really think everybody thinks retail is a little more passive, but I think if you really want to grow your property, get to know your tenants. How can you help them? How can you work together with them? And maybe you do it. We had a tenant here. I think I told you about it before. Was he cordoned off the parking lot, pulled the permits because that's not what a retailer does. They didn't know how to do it. The landlord pulled the permits and allowed these guys to do on a event on the weekend, driving all these people to come over. He helped them secure parking from another building across the street on the weekend so everybody could walk over. And it was a great event and drove a lot of people to that community, and a lot of them stayed afterwards. So, and that was in part that, the cost was, it was almost nothing for this landlord to do it other than time. He put his time into it. And so it really worked well for his tenants. Those tenants really appreciated what that landlord did for them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really important. It's definitely a partnership. Okay.
It is. All right.
Number 5. Here we go. Placemaking. So placemaking is really developing a sense of place. And so you can do that through a combination of strategic acquisition of places and spaces. You can create experiences. You can have unique attributes in places. You can do murals. You can have oversized gaming. We've seen and done everything from 20,000-foot mural experiences on the side of, department stores,
Oh,
all the way to
okay.
video, interactive AR, VR type of experiences within a place, right? And so just creating an immersive retail environment somewhere that's a location. You're seeing, tons of pop-ups throughout the country that are,
Yeah.
maybe a month or maybe 3 months. Some of them are 6 months. They're immersive. Van Gogh is a great example of that. They're all over the place right now throughout the United States.
Yeah.
They probably have, I think I want to say like 20 different locations, and they are heavily advertising, and that's a very immersive experience that creates a sense of place. And so it's really crucial. It continues to be present in all aspects of development, design, community programming, and destination marketing. And it really helps to increase dwell time as well. And then there's a direct correlation between the amount of time spent somewhere and the amount of money spent somewhere. And so the longer that you're there, the more money you're going to spend.
Yeah, I can see it. If you don't mind me asking about what is the cost for to have the video going up? Like if you said you put, was it 20,000? How big was it? 20,000 square feet. You said you put
Oh,
one
for the
up.
murals, if you're
Yeah.
building a mural program, the going rate right now to budget is about $15 a square foot. That includes
Oh,
art, the artist, and all of the supplies, and typically documentation. So the way we typically do it
okay.
is we source the artists. We do a lot of artist calls, so community calls for artists, because again, we like to engage the community. We like to have local flair. And then we pick the best provider based on what they submit and what our RFP looks like. But that's probably a good range to start with. And then we negotiate with the artist and we work through what the designs look like. And in some cases, the landlord or the property has a lift. In some cases, they have to rent it. Typically, we require that the artists carry their own insurance as well, but it's a collective effort.
Sure.
And we've seen some really amazing art pieces come out of, tons of different projects around the country.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you um, and that's if you get a big blank wall, it's a great way because everybody wants to be outside right now. You want to be sitting, working outside. You want to be having lunch outside, lunch or dinner outside. So having that art, bringing that color, is huge. I think. So,
Yeah.
all right, number six.
All right, number 6 is digital marketing. So digital has never been more prominent than it is right now. It's been catapult, years ahead. If you don't have a digital presence, you are behind. If you don't have a digital presence and you're not socially marketing, it's like having a website in the early 2000s. So it's probably time to get it together and do that.
Right.
And so essentially, we design and implement robust digital programs. And those programs either support the landlord, add value to the asset, support tenants, support the asset goals, drive community, integrate people, and they create an image. And essentially, could almost be a image in the sense of for acquisition. So if it's not an operating property or doesn't have a lot of activity, you can make it look like it has a lot of activity sometimes by adding a digital footprint and creating a little bit more life into that asset. And people around the country that are just searching online and looking on Google and on Instagram and on Facebook would tend to think that there's a lot more going on somewhere than there maybe is. So there are some tips and tricks to add some value to those assets for different groups
Yeah.
and departments that might be listening as well, that aren't typically just focused on sales driving initiatives as well. So
Are you guys are you guys doing much on TikTok yet? I just saw that it's overtaking Instagram as far as
yeah,
views. And I thought,
it's actually
wow.
it's overtaken YouTube on views. So people spend more time
Oh,
watching
it has?
TikTok than they do YouTube. YouTube has more videos on and has a lot more content, but
Sure.
everybody, is user generated creating content now. Yes, the shopping centers are using TikTok, some of them. It honestly depends on the staff and how savvy and how resourceful the on-site team is. Um, TikTok and Clubhouse, for example, are really things that you can't outsource or fake. They take a real
Yeah.
person to actually do, right? So it's hard to
Yep.
have a third party or somebody else facilitate those for you because they're not as authentic. So we like to really focus on being authentic in those places and spaces so that they are relevant. So if they've got a team and a
Sure.
staff that's savvy enough that gets it and that wants to dip their toe into TikTok, we're all about it. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say there are other things right now that everybody should be all in on social ad campaigns. Instagram obviously is a must. Instagram takeovers with partners like influencers that we might work with, doing Facebook giveaways. Informational website content is still paramount, right? Keeping that information up to date and important. Like that's the first place that people go to get information. So it's the first place that you should put your content. So, and a lot of people forget that and miss that.
Yeah.
We do a lot of texting. So SMS is really critical and really good. We encourage the assets if they're capable of having a Wi-Fi solution so that you can collect data from the customer in those places and spaces. That's really important because you want to be able to remarket to them. If you can't have a Wi-Fi type system, developing an SMS text message program is great. Also, it allows you to still have a cap of people and a database of people that you can segment to, segmented newsletter distribution. There's also heat mapping opportunities out there. But essentially, we really take and look at it holistically and figure out what the programs are, what the strategies are, what the tactics are, and then we apply the digital programming into it.
Let me ask you something, Najla. Websites. Do you find that some of the mid-level landlords, retail landlords, do they actually have good websites these days?
Um,
Most of them.
Some do, some don't. Again, individually,
Yeah.
I don't think you can cluster all of those people together. Some centers have great websites, some landlords have great ones, some companies do, some don't. It's typically where we start first. So we do an audit. A lot of people think you set it and forget it. That's not how websites work. They evolve over time. They constantly have to be refreshed and updated. And brand is another really critical piece of it, right? That also needs to be updated and looked at and refreshed, and core values, and that needs to translate through all of your communication. So some are good, some are bad. We fix what we
Yeah.
can. They don't have to be elaborate. They don't have to cost tens of thousands of dollars. They have to tell you what you need to know, and they have to be efficient
Right.
and quick and load easily and be mobile first, essentially.
Yeah, and they don't. A lot of retailers we see the mid-level. They do get a website up, but they haven't really done any kind of looked at their color schemes or their branding, and I think that's pretty important for what they're trying to do. So I just want to bring that up for all the landlords out there. Make sure you're looking at that.
Yeah.
All right, where are we? Number 8?
Number 7.
Number 7. Number
Number
7. Jumping
7.
ahead.
So
Sorry.
number 7 is really adding value through PR and thought leadership. So you want to cultivate and leverage relationships. So whether it's community relationships or industry relationships, in order to really increase your brand awareness and generate positive exposure for the asset, you've got to have those relationships and you've got to push that forward. Managing crisis is also really important and paramount and seems to happen every day in my world. So I sometimes call myself a professional firefighter, although I don't fight real fires.
Yeah.
I'm constantly battling
Right.
some issue that is, ready to explode into a crisis. So as thought leaders and community activists, marketing really taps into those traditional media outlets, local and civic influencers. So when we say influencers, it's not only the Instagram influencers, it's also who are the civic leaders, who are the city council, who are the movers and shakers that have influence, right, over the way a project's going to turn out, or get to decide if something happens or not. So those are the people that we want to get in front of, and we want to build and maintain mutually beneficial relationships with them. And ultimately, that's what PR is. And so if we have leadership at the field level or in those specific centers or markets or the owners, and they can actually be the thought leaders and be the front man or woman in those markets, that's really important, and that helps for sure.
Okay. PR is
Number
a tough one. It's creating that buzz. You need somebody like you to really help, I think. All right, number 8.
Number 8 is back to good old communication. So
Oh,
communicating
yeah.
brand identity and value is paramount when it comes to building the relationship with the tenants, with owners, with investors, with civic leaders, with the community. So making sure that your messaging is clear, that you're consistent, that you're responsive. One of the things I always say in this business is you can't burn bridges, right? Somebody who works for you might be your boss in 20 years. It's just the way that this place works and the way the real estate business is. So it's really been critical to be able to communicate effectively. So written word, right? Speaking effectively, being able to write memos effectively, phone calls. Phone calls are still the lifeblood of this business. So making sure that you're doing that, replying to emails on a day, on time. You'd be surprised how people don't communicate or don't respond back. And then, transparent reporting that comes down to what's required sometimes in the leases. But a lot of times, if you have
Sure.
relationships with people, a lot of the store manager, they tell you things that aren't in their lease that they're required to tell you. So you get a lot of knowledge and information just by talking to them and asking questions and, being in the mix.
We all need just to remember this is a people business. So it's all about relationships. So to build relationships, you need communication. And I think if we really remember that as the core of all this business, then we're kind of one step ahead of everybody. All right, number 9.
Number 9 is innovation. So you want to try to disrupt
Mm.
the traditional industry norms by being at the forefront of creativity, of being at the forefront of digital integration, of local connection, just trying to always make your mark on something new, right? Marketing is always on the cusp of new ideas. We're constantly presenting different solutions. We're looking at data driven results, and different decision making capability based on all of the things that we've done. And just trying something new. I always talk to my team and tell them just try. What's the worst that can happen? You fail and you pick yourself up and you try something else. Like fail fast, move on.
Right.
So innovation is just newness, right? And it's just trying something
Yep.
different that you haven't tried in the past. And I think another big piece is you don't always have to do what you've always done just because you've always done it. So because you've had a marketing plan or a certain event or a program that's been done year after year after year after year, and it's always been done that way, maybe it's time for a shakeup. Maybe it's time to look at it through a
Yeah.
different lens or to try something totally different. And maybe it's great and it works and you want to keep it and continue, and that's fine too. But I always encourage my marketing and management teams to look at everything through a different lens and to reevaluate every program that they do every year. Recaps are very important. So every time you have an event, I like to say if there's more than 1,000 people or you spend more than, you know, probably $5,000, there should be a formal recap done so that you can see what you did well, how it went, and then more importantly, how you can do it better next time.
Right. Great advice. That's one thing you want to be. A lot of people don't look at their analytics on their marketing as they're putting it out. They want to really be tracking in something that we've learned. A lot of them don't. They just kind of like, okay, that worked well. Well, how well did it work? If you had this many people over at your property over the last 2 months, you did this marketing. Now where are you at? What's your return on that investment you had? So that's spot on.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Last one has to do with a little bit of innovation and a little bit of development. So in real
Right.
estate, you can't let an asset sit stagnant for very long. It constantly has to have some type of an investment put into it. And so here comes along development marketing. So creating a strong marketing program to support the development or the construction of new uses, being able to repurpose underdeveloped land, looking at your place and space essentially, through the lens of being able to master plan it. Development marketing really helps to reposition an asset in the community. It helps to bring strategic based messaging. It allows you to tell a concept story. It primes the community for what's to come. A lot of times it also helps to leverage and bring groups along to help get people on your side. Lots of what goes into development marketing is newsworthy, and is driven by economics. So people want to see people working within their, within their communities. You also get to celebrate the execution of various milestones in a construction project, and then celebrate obviously the grand opening and maintain momentum of that throughout the life cycle of the project.
Okay. Get involved with your community too. I mean, that's huge. And as we've invested in a few retail deals, and that we developed them, and then we invited the city council over, and that was really about it. But I think we could have taken that to a next level. Really get them involved in the beginning, and then really keep them there, and I think it'll help promote it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Any other tips?
Yeah, I think just in closing, marketing makes change happen. So if you want to see a change or you want to see something different, it would behoove you to invest in either a firm or a group or a team, or bringing that capability in house. But to be able to invest in some longer term strategic moves to help propel you and get you to that next level and to actually make that change happen. A lot of time we reverse engineer to get to a way to fix it through marketing. So we're always presented with like, here's the problem, or here's the emergency. And then we look at it and we kind of reverse engineer what we need to do to get us to, or to get us from a place to the next place. And so that's how marketing works and how we make magic.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just really think that, I'm going to put some stuff up on Instagram, Facebook, and it's just, I think after today, a lot of people can see how much more detailed this needs to be and how much it really needs to be thought out. And that's like a firm like yours and what you guys do is very powerful, because as a developer or a real estate owner, I know real estate. I don't know what you're doing. I learned so much today. Thank you very much, by the way. And, so I like to outsource it and then focus on what I do best, and then let you do your thing. And so thank you very much for today. I mean, this was priceless information that I'm sure you get paid big bucks to give out there. So, on my subscribers, thank you. I thank you. And hopefully we can do this again. And Najla, she's the owner of KM Marketing. I'm going to put her contact information up on the video. Make sure you reach out to her. If you want to reach out to me, I'll put you in direct contact as well. So Najla, thank you very much for coming on today. This was priceless. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate it.
All right.